This time on the Fast Lane with Isaiah, it is my 2027 NASCAR schedule predictions. Sure, am I going to have some help from Jordan Bianchi and his rumors? Yes, that's going to help my predictions here. But how I'm doing this is I'm changing what I believe will occur from this 2026 schedule right there, keep that handy, to what will occur for 2027. So, first up, I have the Clash returning to Daytona. I believe that is a great thing to happen for the sport because our biggest race needs to have a lead into it like IndyCar does for the Indy 500. The biggest NASCAR stock car race in the world, the Daytona 500, needs to have hype for it, and the Clash going to Daytona does just that. It's a preseason taste of what we're going to see a week later in the Daytona 500. I believe it will be a great show for the fans with this new package, hopefully. And between preseason Thunder returning, the Clash being in Daytona, and then the Daytona 500, Speed Weeks is officially back. And then my next schedule change is going to be a swap of dates between Las Vegas and COTA. The reason I have this occurring is because St. Petersburg and COTA overlapped for the Truck Series and O'Reilly Series this past season. And so, to solve that issue, if you put Vegas a night race for the O'Reilly Series a few weeks earlier, and then you have St. Petersburg for the Truck Series, it just seems to work out. And nothing really other changes, just a date swap there. And my next thing I want to talk about is IndyCar will return at Phoenix, is my prediction. Maybe not an IndyCar channel, but I'm going to throw out an IndyCar prediction, and that is they will be at Phoenix with NASCAR next year. They really seem to like it. I believe it really lifts up IndyCar and helps NASCAR, as well. Just helps IndyCar fans that may not be into NASCAR to come to a NASCAR race and vice versa. And then Martinsville. I believe Martinsville will retain 2 dates in 2027. I want to point that out because some fans is asking for Martinsville to possibly lose a date for another track to gain, or for a new track to possibly gain a date. But I just don't see that happening because local and state lawmakers are advocating for 2 dates. It really helps the local economy. And I just really don't see it happening. Martinsville is a classic track. Everybody wants a Martinsville clock. And the racing has gotten better with the next gen. I was there in the spring, and I thought in person it was a very, very solid race. And then my next schedule change I want to mention is the Truck Series will be at Kansas in the spring, and the O'Reilly Series will be at Kansas in the fall. Just flip-flopping those two from 26 because of how the chase for the O'Reilly Series, so the chase isn't starting much earlier than the Cup Series, so it's kind of the last few weeks of the year, and they have more races later in the year for the O'Reilly Series. It's just better to put Kansas there in the chase with how the schedule's lined up for what I was doing. And then another thing I want to mention is I do not believe NASCAR will be back at the Rock in 2027, and the reason is because of the IHRA. I believe NASCAR will be there in 28. I believe NASCAR, SMI, Roger Penske or another big owner there will buy that track. It's an historic NASCAR track. The racing is being over the top 2 series. A lot of money's went in it from the government there. I do believe that track will return. I just believe it would take some turnaround time before 27, and I just don't see it happening for 27 at this point. My next schedule change is Dover being the second week of May. Dover returns to a points date. It's not in July like it was in 25 in the burning hot. And I just believe it makes sense for Dover to return as a points date. The racing there for the All-Star race was very solid this year for Dover. And I think the 750 package really helped Dover this year. And then the next thing is probably going to be unpopular with y'all. It probably really is going to be unpopular. And that is North Wilkesboro returning to the All-Star race. But I did give it an O'Reilly date from that Rockingham date that was lost. And I believe that would be an historic triple-peat with all 3 series. The optics would look great for all 3 series there. The crowd would be packed in the place. And I think it'd just be great for the sport to have all 3 series there if the Cup Series did return to an All-Star and show that they are committed to North Wilkesboro, whether it's a points race or an All-Star race. And I do believe they need to figure out how to keep it a points race and get it to a permanent points race. But I think for 27, it just how the schedule's lining up right now that it makes sense to be the All-Star. And then Chicagoland and Echo Park Speedway. I have Echo Park Speedway Atlanta going there to the July 4th weekend. I believe it would be reminiscent. It would be cinema July 4th weekend to be under the lights at Atlanta like Daytona back in the day. And I think it'd just be great to see. I think it'd be a very fun race to watch on July 4th, and then Chicagoland the weekend after. I do not see the street course returning there, and I just believe, with how the city is right now, I just don't really see that happening for NASCAR in 27. San Diego, I do want to mention, I do believe they will return to the prime date of where they were last year as well. And then next up I would like to talk about, this is Jordan Bianchi here helping me out with this, where North Wilkesboro was in the schedule this past year, 4th race of TNT. I believe Worldwide Technology Raceway will go and slot in right there with the Truck Series and the Cup Series. And then next up I'd like to say is the 3rd weekend in August, Bristol will return to August out of college football season. Ratings will be boosted tremendously, I believe, and attendance as well, being out of a very, very passionate fan base of college football down there in Tennessee. I think it just makes great sense to return Bristol to August and then slot another track in the region, Richmond, into the chase. Richmond, I think, fits the mold of the chase really well, and I think it'd be fun to see and change up the chase, very often, like what I'm going to talk about right now. The chase, first 3 races I have them changing from this year. I have it as New Hampshire, Watkins Glen, and Richmond. Darlington, with how the schedule lines up, will be out of the chase, still Labor Day weekend, but I have it in that order of New Hampshire, Watkins Glen, Richmond. I think switching it up every year will really help the chase just stay alive, stay fresh for the fans. And switching dates in and out, I think, it is a very good thing. And my predictions here aren't crazy. Like, I don't have NASCAR returning to Kentucky or NASCAR doing a street race wherever or NASCAR going to Mexico or anything else. I've not heard rumors on any of that, and I believe by this point we'd hear some of that. And that's why, that's swaying how I'm predicting here. And Milwaukee Mile, do we want to see that return? I'd love to see Milwaukee Mile come here. I'd love to see North Wilkesboro keep a points date, like I said. I'd love Rockingham to get a points race here. But there's only so many dates, and I believe that NASCAR isn't getting complacent in any way by not adding a new track in 27. I don't believe that's the case. We're switching things around and keeping the dates fresh. And I think it would just, I think how it is in 27 and how things are just lining up with what NASCAR is, give them another year of negotiation, see where they can get points dates. Maybe, like I said, Kentucky. I'd love to see NASCAR at Kentucky. I'd love to see them back at the Rockingham, the Rock. And then, like I said, Milwaukee Mile would be a great oval to go to, but there's only so many dates in a calendar year for NASCAR to go to, and I believe where they're at right now, that it is a good place to be, and switching dates around, keeping the schedule fresh in that manner is okay for a season. We don't need to freak out by no major schedule changes for 1 year. They will make schedule changes. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to never miss another video on the Fast Lane with Isaiah.